Kitchenette Paris, a show about food and passions and the City of Light. I'm Danny Bells, historian, former restaurateur, writer, cook, and current Parisian with the tiniest of kitchens. Join me as I answer the siren call of Paris and eat and cook my way through town. Are you jump curious when a rabbit hole appears? Do you get a little charge when you feel heroic and take a huge leap onto the unknown and live to tell the tale and receive adulation from simple folks who just don't seem to display any signs of courage or elan? I'm bold, I'm one of a kind, you might say, as you dust a chip off your shoulder for your superior stance and willing to take on higher teachings for the rest of us. You might austerely live in a cave for 7 years, meditating on behalf of humanity, or you might be the kind that is more prone to enter a plant medicine ceremony that surely will lead to biblical level revelations and will be monetized in your next online masterclass. Oh, how delicious to know more than others, to be the tall poppy, the martyr, to become the teacher to the simple souls that seek you out for being the exceptional being who discovered the secrets to life. Then again, you might be more in tune with your shadow side and be drawn to the sadistic charge of an obnoxious life lesson and the state of disarray in which it leaves you. You jump in with the hope that life slaps you silly because you know the jolt will be followed by an addictively delicious sense of calm and peace. Never mind about any long-lasting repercussions. In her book, Existential, Dr. Carolyn Elliott clarifies this weird little paradox in which we seek out situations that hurt so good. We might get a charge by the sweet agony of failure, shame, and pain and suffering. We might crave this more than we are willing to admit. I am jump curious, as I am the kind that craves the after effects of a good life lesson where softness and peace seem to take over my nervous system. Every hole I've jumped into, by choice or by kicking and screaming, has led to a sense of okayness with not knowing absolute answers to agonizing questions. Each jump brought more play, more laughter, and more gratitude to my days. The more trips I take, the more my mind expands, and the less I feel the need to give unsolicited advice, and the more I laugh at myself and I relax, and the more I just want to ignite every pleasure receptor in my body to enjoy the ride. The more I jump into the rabbit hole, the more I want to hear of others' wild rides too. Not to compare, but to coattail off each other and simply enjoy a shared sense of play. Frolicking in the kitchen, I feel the pull of my inner muse to play and manifest something new out of the abyss. An ugly, stinky cabbage, for instance, can alchemize into sweet, elevated umaminess in my hands. It's a playful rabbit hole to behold the wrinkly crucifer and imagine how much I will need to litigate for the finished dish with picky eaters or skeptical dinner guests or displeased neighbors on my floor, who will surely comment on the grotesque smell diffusing from my apartment when we meet on the elevator tomorrow morning. I'm game. I have it in me to see this to the end and birth something playful and delicious with a stinky brassica. It's not the trouble it will bring me that satisfies in an existential kink sort of way, but the instinct within that tells me to push, 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 birth something interesting, go off and create. If the itch to play seduces you into experimentation, you'll do just about anything to see where it goes. A new lover? A huge wave to surf? A totally wacky new invention? You won't scratch that itch till you jump into that rabbit hole and embody the archetype of the mad inventor that in a fully disheveled state, emotional or physical, conceives the extraordinary. To eat the entrails and organs and the viscera of animals would be the most intolerable taboo to almost everyone I have ever met in my entire life in every country I have ever lived in, 7 so far, or visited, except for Argentina, Uruguay, and France. The butcher's case is usually very pretty in the Anglosphere, where little packets of beef are wrapped in phyllo dough and adorned with long blades of chive tied into pretty little bows. Anything, it seems, to avoid the seemingly excruciating reality that we are about to partake in the eating of dead flesh. Not so in Paris, where calf's brains and tripe and pig's heads are proudly on display at market every Saturday morning, where vegans are often understood to be chicken eaters and in no way have the same opportunities for delighting in Parisian deliciousness as carnivores, where how one eats their meat is a clear demarcation between the locals and the foreign weaklings who just can't seem to handle a plate of raw beef or medallions of bull's tongue à la vinaigrette. My shadow self comes to full light at my favorite bistros, where I dine not to confront my relationship to dead, edible flesh, but where I come to terms with my humongous ego and a disturbing little tendency toward the performative. My habit is to order the andouillette sausage with its sinews and chewy parts and very funky stench, and to delight in the adulation that the waitstaff impart on me as they realize that I'm not some feeble foreigner with an underdeveloped palate who can't tolerate elevated culinary experiences. Vous les connaissez? A waiter might ask with furrowed brow. Of course I know what I'm ordering. Sinewy guts with the remnant stench of bovine digestive juices. The waiter smiles at me approvingly. I had him at andouillette, it seems. I sense a turning point in my meal, and I just know I've been let into the exclusive club of locals who sneer at the bewildering culinary immaturity of Americans and Australians and all those other people in the Anglosphere. An unhealthy rush of pride overtakes my good senses, and I might even engage in some mutual eye-rolling with my server as we discuss the mystery of these culinary ingenues and their self-imposed limitations. I'm gossiping with the server, exchanging more words than usual for me with a local who seems to approve of my individuality and eclectic nature. I triangulate against my own with a complete stranger who went from arrogant to chummy in a matter of seconds. And I now seem to have a best friend, a comrade, a partner in crime with whom I will exchange smiles and smirks and eye rolls as we realize and we concur that indeed ingenues on the outside have absolutely no taste. As an anti-gossip kind of gal, I'm appalled at the immense satisfaction these interactions bring me. And I'm ashamed to admit, I've sought them out in a guilty pleasure sort of way more often than I'd like to admit. Gossip and idle chit-chat are toxic for me, for everyone really. And yet, here I am, seeking out this dark force that satisfies, if only for a few minutes. The liminal space that I navigate in this city, where my atrocious French and perpetual smile are a dead giveaway of my outsider status, melts away fully during these lunches. My back is erect, my chest puffs out like a pigeon in heat, and for a few minutes I belong. Never mind, I had to sell my soul and my compatriots. I'll talk it out in therapy and probably in my existential kink book club. For some, it's the dead flesh that brings out those pesky little questions about the shadow self. For me, It's the shallow and toxic, underhanded seediness of joining an imaginary club that, for at least a little moment, makes me feel like I won't be expelled from this magnificent city by sneering locals and the oh-so-chic. I am much more vacuous sometimes than I'd like to admit. For the not-so-shallow, the partaking of dead bovine guts is where the shadow self has to be explored. I'm endeared to the ones who, even in France proper, have taken it upon themselves to ask more beautiful questions about how we live our lives. How can we maintain our purity as higher beings if we engage in the killing of beasts for consumption? Is how we eat and act in the service of the deities? Can we thrive without destroying lives and come into contact with our divine self? Fantastic conversations that would serve me much better than idle gossip with chummy waitstaff. A good conversation with a Cathar, had I been a French woman in the 1200s, would have been delightful. The Cathars lived in the Languedoc region of modern France and were active vegetarians in the service of the gods. They engaged in purity and fertility rituals from nudity to vegetarianism. As a probable offshoot of the ancient cult of Isis, the Cathars invoked the powers of the fertility goddesses in ritual purifications that invoked rebirth experiences in which possible doorways to hyperdimensions could open. The Cathars were unmanageable by the church hierarchy, and Pope Innocent III ordered all of them killed, along with any neighbors who might happen to be nearby. Perhaps up to 100,000 were executed, burned, or beheaded. There would be no tolerance shown to the counterculture in those days, and traditionalism would reign through deadly force. A very dark period in which the French were forced to stick to certain traditions or else. In 2025, no one is forced to eat meat anymore, and nudity is embraced at the Bois de Vincennes in Paris. But no major focus can be noted in exploring the shadow side of how we eat here. Perhaps the iron rule of the church triumphed. Perhaps deep hunting and animal husbandry traditions dominate the culinary landscape. Perhaps the cuisine of the peasantry, with its offcuts and hearty ingredients, are just too good to pass up. Whatever the origins of this unyielding, carnivorous love affair, what is certain is that the French honor the kill by consuming the entire animal without apology. There is no waste, the entrails, the guts, the brains. It's all alchemized into a richness of flavor that soothes and satisfies a Sunday lunch, or during a weeknight dinner of spinach and calf's brains ravioli with a sage butter sauce. Yep, you heard me. Whereas in the US, we'd rather feed these unthinkables to our cats and our dogs, I assert that we honor the natural world when these cuts make it to our tables, and we truly enjoy them. The andouillette is a delight for the senses. Its crispy outer skin satisfies the need for caramelization. The insides are a bit chewy and toothy. Some bits are gelatinous. Others have the texture of well-cooked cartilage. The scent is unmistakably visceral. Some would call it a funky stench. Others, a deep, primal pungence that makes its mark and pronounces our connection to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. I still haven't tried the locally revered horse meat. In some form of shadow play, my unease with killing to survive surfaces, and the meat-loving hypocrite in me asks how such a beautiful animal could be eaten, and then a deluge of questions floods my mind and my heart. Are cattle less valuable than horses? If I love meat so much, would I be willing to hunt it myself? How come every time I've gone fishing, I got a cold chill when I whacked the fish on the head to put it out of its misery? Should I be drinking this delicious milk if dairy farms are notorious for slaughtering baby calves? If my husband hunts a rabbit for dinner, will that mean that the baby bunnies, who were expecting their mama's return that afternoon, will be orphaned and eaten by local raptor owls? Is this actually good for the owls? But what about plants? Research is finding that they may be sentient too. As Terence McKenna once said, after being asked if he was a vegetarian, quote, "The most intelligent beings I have ever met are plants, so why shouldn't I eat meat?" And amongst this disorienting vortex of doubts and queries, I still go to market and bring home a beef tongue or a thick slice of head cheese to eat with plenty of lemon juice. And I cook meat every day with absolute delight. And in the middle of winter, like so many, I pine for hearty stews and hefty flavors. In Paris, an enormous homage to winter meat is the choucroute garnie that stems from the Alsace region bordering Germany. The dish is a hearty stew of sauerkraut, various cuts of smoked and fresh meats, potatoes, juniper berries, and other spices. Deep northern European winter fare of which many a variety exist. Kapusta from northeastern Europe, for instance, is very similar and was a favorite in my home growing up, where Aunt Anastasia's famous feast for dozens would be brought to life with caraway seed, pork knuckles, and added sour cream. A beloved dish here in France, even the supermarkets sell heat and serve cans of choucroute. I prefer to make my own, invoking Anastasia's Lithuanian techniques, but keeping the juniper berry. On a whim, I bought whatever cuts I could find recently and made a beautiful batch that lasted through the entire weekend. It brought back memories of enormous hugs and giggles in Anastasia's kitchen and the deeply recognizable scent of my childhood home as pots of kapusta or choucroute would simmer at the stove for hours. Times when big questions and the shadow self had not yet surfaced in my life, when good food and loving company meant everything. Whatever the name, choucroute, kapusta, this dish is for Anastasia, that vivacious, delightful great auntie who loved life unconditionally and who brought her big heart and spirit to the new world, and who cut off her long hair and threw her luggage overboard en route to America at age 16. To you, Anastasia, bon appetit. And to all of you listening, bon appetit as well, as you cook your way through deep winter. Until next time, I'm Danny Bells.